Hi everyone, Suntrader here, and today I'm going to talk about one of the most anticipated support characters in the game, Luocha. Well, if it weren't for everyone, at least for me. I did cover him up when patch 1.1 first released, and based on my initial review, he has such a strong impression as a support character because he could do 3 things as a single unit: heal, remove debuff on your ally, and remove debuff on all enemies. As if that's not enough, to turn players' eyes on him, his heal also scales off of his attack, indirectly translates to additional attacker in your team. Today's video will be covering an overview of his entire kit, best relics and artifacts, and of course, the best team composition and stages where he'll shine the brightest. Before we move to the video, please consider subscribing to the channel as it greatly helps me in reaching 1,000 subs. Thank you. Looking at the game content right now that mostly PvE, pulling Luocha might not be in everyone's favor, as why bother with removing debuff, right? Well, it's partially true because the way I see it, you can navigate throughout the game contents just by simply leveling up your characters and get their traces and artifacts level in check. But coming from Simulated Universe 5, where Kafka can hypnotize your characters on top of continuously getting attack increase each time our units get shocked, might serve as a good consideration for you. I think since the game was released without any debuffer unit, then most players might have changed their perspective from looking for one to just simply not care anymore. However, as a friend, I need to remind you guys that in a few patches away, or naturally, the game will progress further, which means that the highest level difficulties on certain game contents will be unlocked, and having such a strong abundance unit like Luocha might be the investment that you needed. As a complete package, Luocha will be able to help you navigate through most of the game contents with his kit. His skill, Barrier of Abyss Flower, immediately restores 40% of ally HP while also granting him 1 stack of Abyss Flower. When one of your unit health falls below 50%, Luocha will then instantly heal that one unit. Triggering heal in this way also triggers the cleansing effect that will remove 1 debuff from your ally. So, in case your unit is in a debuff state and needs healing, Luocha gets you covered. Aside from his ultimate, which is the bread and butter of his entire existence, I personally believe that his talent, the Circle of Life, will serve as a great utility in battle considering its ability to provide extra heal for your ally. As a reminder, the Circle of Life will be triggered when Luocha's Abyss Flower reaches 2 stacks, and once it does, a field will be deployed when an ally attacks enemies when the field is active. They'll heal for 12% of Luocha's attack plus 60 points. In practice, this talent will help you tremendously as the heal can be produced from any of your unit attacks, including follow-up attack from erudition units as well. I came across several situations where my team's health is very low, and when this field is active, every unit in my team can heal everyone. Next in line on his kit, his ultimate, Death Wish. On my last patch 1.1 review, I gave Luocha a good impression because he has such a strong strip that can remove all enemies buff. The most fun that I got when I used his ultimate is when I fight the Mara-struck enemies that have revive buff. When I first arrived in Xianzhu Luofu, these enemies were such a hassle because they could resurrect and provide additional cover to their allies. But now, with Luocha's ultimate, they're not even a real problem anymore. Of course, Luocha is more than just capable to just simply handle the small fries. I test him out in some tough enemy fight to see the amount of sustain and utility that he can provide to the team, and throughout numerous tests, I'm happy to say that he's worth your stellar jade. After the initial overview, it's now time to talk about his relics and light cones. As a debuffer, Luocha's existence is a unique one because his heal scales off of his attack. Now, when it comes to this, ideally we have to throw our traditional abundance mentality, which naturally includes Passerby of Wandering Clouds that increase outgoing heals and restore skill points on 2 sets and 4 sets respectively, to something more out of the box. The way I see it, there's 2 possible relic options that we can go to: Champion of Streetwise Boxing and the Musketeer of the Wild West. The reason why is simply because both of these 2 relic sets provide attack increase on their 2 and 4 set, helping Luocha to get his needed attack stats. Planar ornaments for Luocha might be a flexible one for players to choose from depending on their need, but if we really want to stick to as much attack as possible, then the Space Ceiling Station 2 sets bonus that gives 12% attack and another 12% attack if the speed reaches 120 points is a better option. By building him with a high attack number, players indirectly building another attacker unit that might serve as a good damage dealer with the right stat. I wish I do have the right equipment with crit rate and crit damage modifier to see his bigger potential, but since we all know how investment heavy farming relic sets are, then the current one have to suffice. I did my test by using the Champion of Streetwise Boxing on Luocha because on the 4 set, this relic provides a total of 25% attack increase. This is such a nice number that might distinctively shows a difference difference in the number of heal that he can expand. At the moment, my Luocha is sitting on 1,700 points of attack and around 1,900 points of attack, including buff from the relic set as well as the other units like cones and stuff. On this number, his talent, the Circle of Life, can heal up to 499 points of health to all units. Now, is that a good number that everyone should care about? Well, the answer is going to be subjective depending on the players and the unit that they bring. If you bring a tanky unit with high HP, then it will take a while for your unit to completely heal. But when you bring a squishy DPS with HP below 3000 HP, then the 499 points is such a good number for heal. I went ahead and leveled up some of my relics in order for me to get higher attack number, and with my current resources, I'm now sitting on 1,897 points of attack. In practice, this increase in attack only increased my heal to another 20 points from 499 to nearly 516 points. Light cones, on the other hand, are very limited for Luocha, especially if we disregard his light cones, the echoes of the coffin, that's specifically made for him, which provide 24 to 40% attack increase. For free-to-play options, I'm using the post-OP conversation. The way I see it, Luocha needs to have his ultimate death wish ready as quickly as possible in case he needs to strip the enemy buffs. With post-OP conversation, Luocha will benefit from 8% energy recharge rate on top of getting that 12% outgoing heal. The other light cone options that you can go for is the cornucopia, shared feeling, time waits for no one, and his 4-star light cones, the perfect timing. By looking at, you'll be exchanging effect resistance to gain a good number of outgoing heal. If you think that your Luocha easily get crowd controlled by the enemies, then I recommend you to get this one. For team composition, after playing him for quite some time now, I can say that he mostly works with any team composition that you currently have. I know it's kinda anticlimactic, but seeing how one unit can do damage, provide sustain, cleanse and strip, then he can flexibly work toward any team compositions. There is, however, one team composition or specific unit type that benefit the most from having Luocha in their team, and that's the erudition unit. I think you guys have seen from some footage on the video that his Circle of Life heal is not limited to attack during the unit's turn, but also a unit follow-up attack. With this taken into account, when you're bringing units like Herta, Himeko or Jingyuan, then you can completely heal your team without having to rely on Luocha's main skill. One thing that you have to keep in mind is the fact that he's an offensive healer that heals your ally when his Circle of Life is active. Considering he can do that by having 2 stacks of Abyss Flower, my biggest recommendation for you is to always use his skill first despite your team full health. By doing this, you'll have 1 stack of Abyss Flower and pretty much ready to do your next action in order for you to have your Circle of Life ready. You can heal your unit, you can use your ult if you really have to debuff your enemy, or maybe it's just Luocha triggering his emergency heal. Whatever the case is, always have 1 Abyss Flower, always on the ready to enjoy his heal. Now, for the best stages that he'll shine the brightest is of course in stages with tough enemies who have buff and can debuff enemies. These types of enemies can be found in Stagnant Shadow, Echoes of War, Simulated Universe, and Forgotten Hall. Every unit in Simulated Universe can turn into a godly unit with the right buffs, but considering how complete Luocha is, the right buff combined with his kit can make him become one of the best healer in Simulated Universe. The one fight where I struggled the most before his release was Simulated Universe 5, where we have to fight Kafka. Depleting her weakness bar and health is not a problem. It's her hypnotize that takes control of my units that become the problem, as sometimes she will take the most important one. With Luocha's existence, this type of fight is not even a threat anymore because of his debuff capability and great sustain from his talent. Just make sure that you always have your Abyss Flower on the ready and you're good to go. To me, Luocha is a valuable unit with complete package that can be used in any instance of the game. From world exploration to the more challenging one, he'll fulfill 3 tasks in one single existence: heal, cleanse, and strip the enemy buff. The way his kit works is an interesting one as well from Abundance unit, where normally support scales their heal based on their HP, but Luocha scales off of his attack. This makes another possibility to build him with a good enough stats to provide additional damage on your team. As good as he sounds, there's still a weakness that Luocha has to overcome, and that's crowd control. I guess it's pretty much the same like any other Abundance unit that can heal when they are put under strong crowd control. I came across this situation a few times and it sucks. Other feedback that I have for him is his cleanse. In some of my fight, when my units got debuffed with 2 debuff, Luocha can only remove 1. He'll prioritize debuff with shorter duration over the longer one. If he cleansed the right debuff, then that's great, but there was this situation where my DPS was put under reduced defense and reduced attack debuff, and since the reduced defense duration is shorter compared to the reduced attack one, he removed the shortest one, while my DPS actually benefit from having that reduced attack buff removed. I know it's not the end of the world for him, but something worth mentioning for players who want to spend their stellar jade on him. Well, what do you guys think? Do you think that Luocha deserves to be called as a complete package and top the #1 spot for the best support? Or do you have your own thoughts? Comment below and let's discuss.